Deadpool and Wolverine just came out, and I went to see it with my own two eyeballs. Widely considered to be the hottest blockbuster of the summer, I was looking forward to it solely for Hugh Jackman. Here's the thing, if you're looking for a review about this movie from the perspective of someone who enjoyed the first two Deadpool movies, you might have to look elsewhere, as I guess I happen to be a bit of a contrarian on this front. I like a fair share of the X-Men movies, but I've never really been the biggest fan of Deadpool. I mean, I can definitely see why Deadpool was so popular when it first came out, and I greatly respect the film for that. But I feel like the original Deadpool film is sort of a product of its time looking back. It was a raunchy, comedy-driven, self-aware superhero film calling out a lot of the tropes that people were generally getting pretty tired of seeing in their superhero films. On top of that, films in the MCU were kind of starting to cater an awful lot to families with a more lighthearted comic violence tone, I feel. At least seen in films like Guardians of the Galaxy and Ant-Man. On top of that, films in the MCU and the X-Men series never really surpassed an R rating, so Deadpool was kind of new territory for Marvel. A cynical take on the superhero formula that stood out for being unapologetically itself. I always viewed Deadpool as being a film that was indeed self-aware, but never subverted itself from the typical superhero tropes. Instead, it felt as if Deadpool would just acknowledge these tropes as a joke, like, haha, look at us, I'm Ryan Reynolds, and isn't it funny that superhero movies are so cliche in this particular way? And then proceed to do the exact thing that they were calling out, like that somehow elevates itself over the film they're calling out. I'd argue that makes it more egregious, if anything. Deadpool 2 suffered from the same fate in my eyes. I've never really been a big fan of David Leitch, and I'm sure his over-the-top, self-aware, accessible, crowd-pleasing directing style didn't necessarily help. Luckily, we got Sean Levy behind the wheel for Deadpool and Wolverine, director of Free Guy. Deadpool and Wolverine piqued my interest for three good reasons. One, I was interested to see Deadpool finally paired up with a straight man type character who takes no bullshit from anyone. Two, I wanted to compare this film satirizing the superhero genre to the myriad of other pieces of media in recent years that have done a better job in doing so in my eyes. And three, Hugh Jackman. Now, this movie's part of the MCU. I may have not seen any of the Marvel TV shows, but I've seen every MCU film, and I've seen every single X-Men movie as I watched them all earlier this year. So now that I've gone through my qualifications to review Deadpool and Wolverine, I can do so in confidence. And it was worse than I ever could have imagined. Okay, so I'm being a little dramatic when I say that, but I did not care for this movie. I'm honestly pretty surprised by the critical praise being hailed on this film because I feel like it lacks any and all drive to even evoke an original thought. It just feels like the first movie, except this time we get to talk about the multiverse. If you like Deadpool's humor, I'm sure you'll get a kick out of this, or you already have because I'm sure most hardcore Deadpool fans have already seen it. But I feel as if that Deadpool's self-referential quips are made strangely grim when paired with Disney's acknowledgement of their poor-performing films being churned out of the Marvel factory. It's cynical and mean towards the films released in the MCU post-Endgame with no real drive to create a more inspired narrative that may actually change the game. It's lazy. As much as I was excited to see Wolverine in this film, he barely does much to affect the unfolding plot. The narrative is solely oriented around Deadpool, and Wolverine is mostly just along for the ride, which is made more disappointing by the fact that these two characters don't particularly share a lot of chemistry. As far as technicals go, the performances were fine, I guess. CGI was actually surprisingly pretty bad. There's one key moment that comes to mind involving Gore of My Comfort character that looks pretty bad, but I won't elaborate on that for the sake of not spoiling anything. The story is a total mess, and I feel like that's the meat of the film, aside from the humor, which, you know, I've already acknowledged I'm not the biggest fan of. So I think I'll just jump into spoiler territory here. If you want to skip, here's your warning. Here we go. First off, I want to bring up how much I really do appreciate the concept of this film. It really is fun for a multiverse film. Deadpool needs to save his universe because a core character in it has died, being Wolverine. If he doesn't get this core character back, then everyone in his universe will die. He goes to a different timeline to get Wolverine, which of course is a different Wolverine from the one that they got in Logan, because the one from Logan is dead and they can't go back in time. You know, this is multiverse travel, not time travel. Very different. I don't understand why these films are so open to letting their characters travel to different multiverses with extreme ease. But the minute the concept of time travel is brought up, it suddenly seems like this completely taboo subject. The bad guy sends Deadpool and Wolverine to this trash universe where horrible ideas from Marvel that have no purpose in the MCU go, which is where we see a lot of cool Marvel references like Human Torch, Elektra, Blade, Gambit, which was admittedly very, very cool, and X-23 from Logan. By the way, I knew that Human Torch was going to be in this movie because I saw the cast list on Letterboxd, and I predicted the joke in the movie that Deadpool was going to make. Of course, because it's Chris Evans, he's going to think that Human Torch is Captain America, and then he's going to be upset that it's not him. I did not want to be right, but I knew that I was. I really like this setup a lot, but most of my disappointment in the film is sourced from its inability to do anything fun or original with its concepts. It feels like they just do the same old stuff any superhero movie would do, but Deadpool just happens to acknowledge it beforehand, making it funny and witty, supposedly. Like, he's all like, oh yeah, we're gonna take down the bad guy, and there's gonna be a slow motion sequence showing us all off as we do it. And then that thing happens. Wolverine's narrative presence is very sadly poor. Like I said, the Wolverine in this movie is from a different universe. He's not the Logan that we know and love, because, you know, Logan is dead. So of course we get a depressed Logan who accidentally killed everyone in his timeline. He's actually referred to as the worst Wolverine. He's depressed and angry the whole movie, and is just very reluctant to being around Deadpool, which just feels like we're getting Logan from the first X-Men movie at that point. There's a scene where he talks to X-23 from Logan, and she tells him that the version of him from her timeline was really cool and nice, but this doesn't really feel heartfelt to me because this Logan is a different character with a different history. There's no chemistry present between these characters. Why should Logan care about what the other one did? What does that say about him? Most of the humor in this film is just Deadpool making quips and Wolverine yells at him and then drinks alcohol, and it just feels utterly miserable. I feel like these characters hate each other. There's actually one really great moment in this film where Hugh Jackman actually gets to act, where he yells at Deadpool for being an insincere piece of shit given all the struggles Wolverine has had to face. And it felt like the one point which the writers were taking advantage of this dynamic that really could have worked. This dynamic that would consist of Wolverine not standing for Deadpool's bullshit, but most of the time he's just too depressed to even care about it at all. Or maybe he'll yell at him to stop talking or shut up for a bit, but then that's it, it's over. The film in general just feels so cynical with its self-referential bullshit, trying to downplay how bad the last few years have been for the MCU, just by letting you know that they too are aware. I'm not here to do a breakdown of the entire plot, but it doesn't unfold in a satisfying way for me, and the fact that Deadpool keeps acknowledging how bad the MCU films in recent years have been without the studio putting any foot forward to fix or change that is just depressing. It just makes me sad to see this movie with characters that I like caught up in such a nothing plot, while acknowledging that it's a nothing plot, and for some reason doing nothing to change that. Deadpool whines about multiverse concepts being overdone, but I don't see you doing anything new or creative with the concept. Instead of being, like I said, creative and new with these concepts you consider to be overdone, like, you know, the Spider-Verse movies, you continue to make obscure references to pre-existing Marvel films just to get people to excitedly point at the screen with their jaws open because they understand it. You feed into this exact practice that you're criticizing. If you criticize it so much, then please just be better than it. Do something original like Spider-Verse. Invincible is a show that acknowledges superhero tropes and then it turns them on its head and creates a damn good story off of that concept. Why can't Deadpool and Wolverine be the same? It's like a snake eating its own tail that's aware that it's eating its own tail, and for some reason the snake thinks it's morbidly funny. I'm not trying to partake in a call to action to boycott Deadpool and Wolverine or anything. If this sounds like something you're interested in, if the movie looks cool to you and you want to go check it out, I'm not trying to tell you that you shouldn't do that. I'm just saying that me personally, I'm beyond simple fan service. It's not tantalizing to me anymore. I'm really disappointed in Deadpool and Wolverine, not because I was expecting a lot, but because I was upset because of how cool the concept was and just how little was actually done with it. It doesn't feel like a Deadpool and a Wolverine movie. It feels much more like a Deadpool movie that happens to have Wolverine in it. Frankly, I can't think of a better way to sum up the film. If you have seen this movie and you enjoyed it, I'm really glad that you did. I wish I could enjoy Deadpool, but his humor really just isn't for me. If you like this movie and you like Deadpool in general, I'd love for you to share your thoughts below. What did you like about this movie? What didn't you like? I'm really interested to hear what other people think. I could use some positivity, especially related to Deadpool and Wolverine, so if you like the movie, please share your thoughts. I really do want to hear it, because this one wasn't for me, guys. I'm giving this one a reluctant 4 out of 10.